Record. So this interview is Andy Johnson, and everybody has requested this one. So it's a really good one. So, Andy Johnson, welcome to the studio, my friend. Yeah, thanks. So, you left home because of the issue with smoking weed, which obviously we did that tale on. What happened after you left home? You sort of left school, you left home. What happened? So I left home and I crashed on friends' sofas. Yeah. I went to college. No, I didn't go to college. I was going to go to college and then I didn't. Just a minute.
6:40 p.m. 6:40 p.m. 8:07. PQRS 8. TUV. Mic trigger. Mic lock. Button. Mic lock. Mic lock. Finish recording. Mic lock. Button. Is on. Double tap.
So obviously, I had to do different things because I didn't really want to go to college and I didn't really want to learn any skills. To be fair, school was shit. Kind of. You get bullied in school. Yeah. Fights all the time, and my brother was going down the same path as my dad was, basically, which was, my dad basically ended up in prison for shit that happened. I know, because your brother, Tony, he was a right one, wasn't he? And we did a story on that as well, didn't we? We did, well, when he got into, to rehab and, yeah. Well, when I got him off the drugs and then he got into rehab later on. When I left home, I went into work for security, and I started at a security company kind of in Scam, and I was doing like alarms and fitting phones, intercoms, alarms, intercoms, phones, all that kind of stuff. Fire alarms, all that stuff. And in the end, they asked me if I would do something. They then said, we're going to do security cameras. Oh, excuse me. I was fitting security cameras. And then the security company closed and I moved to another security company over in Manchester. It was actually for a friend because I met him in a club and I used to smoke weed with him. It was, to be honest with you, weed back then was such more of a sociable drug. I mean, weed has always been sociable in my eyes. Just because it's not like other drugs, like popping pills and all the rest of it. I mean, injecting steroids was like a recreational drug because you could do the gym and party. And people used to just fucking like do the gym. And I've seen the amount of people that just screw their body up through doing that shit. And they look worse than Stretch Armstrong, to be fair. And they look like, some look like pigs and like loads of meat. Meat on meat at that, but like, man. And I've seen but it was just like, I had a bad I had a bad spell through all that, but it's like weed was such more of a because people smoked cigarettes, and like smoking was a big thing. You're supposed to go to the pubs and smoke. But the only problem with that was when you came home, you smelled like a freaking ashtray. So when we went out to a club, you went to a club, and and literally you would go to clubs and pubs or wherever, or bars, and you couldn't drink at 17 years of age, but you could smoke. So you'd buy a glass of Coke or whatever, and and you'd be smoking in the bar, and it was a sociable thing. And to smoke a bit of weed, as long as you weren't going overboard. Some bars weren't really. They didn't. A lot of people used to smoke weed in the toilets, and But anyway, I was 18 at this point because I was driving. I just passed my driving test. Because I wanted a driving job. I was 17. Was I 17, 18? And I wanted a driving job. And they said, well, you could be a binman. There's like a bin job, like going. It was for a private company, where you were driving all kinds of trash around, or there was a security job going. And I was like, oh, tell me more about the security job. He says, it's with a guy in Salford. And he was a dangerous man. And he was dangerous. Yeah. He was known. And it was like, the guy's like, you're going to have to learn martial arts before you start the job. And I was like, shit, what is this job? Because it's like, there was a job where it was more brutal and ruthless. They had, they weren't just fitting alarms and cameras. That was part of the job. That I did still do that, but then there was other stuff like driving money around, handling weapons, all that kinds of stuff. And it was like, there weren't just like safe, there weren't just money in the safe. There was guns, there was jewelry, there was knives, there was diamonds, there was all kinds of stuff. Because people used to come to us like, we used to get all of the, we got from your average Joe saying, hey, could you keep me gun safe? Because there was some people who had like gun clubs and they didn't really want people finding that they had a gun, or they had a gun collection and they wanted their gun collection keeping safe. And that happened. And literally all of the gangsters around Manchester, it didn't matter which gang they were in, they would come to us because they knew, even though there were gangs that didn't get on with each other, there was lots of gang warfare, they would come to us and they would say, hey, can we leave our gun here with you? Can we leave our knife? Can we leave our, and because they were using us, well, they had safe houses or crack houses, whatever you call them, and their guns would be hidden. Some of the guns that they would have would be in, like, if there was a drug raid happening, whatever, they'd have a gun there, but then they'd put the biggest guns. Or if there was like arms dealers would come to us and they'd say, hey, can we leave this here with you and whatever. And it happened, you know. So you saw all walks of life coming through, and it was different because you worked the desk, and they would hand you stuff, and they wouldn't say, "Oh, I'm going to use this. Could you hand me that M16 Wireguard and shoot this person or whatever?" You never knew where they were going unless it made the papers. Which one of the guys that worked around the corner for another company, and he was an arms dealer, and he was very well known, and we helped him out and because we were in with the arms dealers, because they were like, hey, you know, if you want this weapon, we'll get this weapon, and we had guns in the office. It's like, how many jobs do you know where you have a gun in your office? You have a gun on your desk, you know. Well, actually, when I was in national services, I had the it was called the weapons office, or armed response office, and we had guns on our desk, and it was nothing, you know. It was just like the norm, wasn't it? Hey, you'd walk in the office, there was a gun on the table, you know. It was the way you did things. I mean, there was a guy who shot himself, and they just threw the gun on the table. It's like, what? What's going on here? You know, guy shoots himself, hey. You know? Well, we had, like, a lot of the people came in. Some of the people were from, like, some of them were bobbies. You know, we had regular police come in, and they weren't posing as police, or even if they were, but there was a lot of police that came in that wanted guns, wanted knives. Yeah. It was unbelievable. And we'd have to go and protect their asses half the time. If there was a nightclub being raided by police, well, we were sent in to help the police. And that's when shit really, really went down. Because, you know, you were asked to go in and do stuff. And if you were asked to go and help gangs out, which was, you know, we were asked to come out, and we went to the Coliseum. We got jobs at the Coliseum because we were very well known, because Southport was sort of in the Lancashire region. It was in Merseyside, but we were friends with the people in the Lancashire region, and because a lot of the Southport companies and the the Southport companies and the Blackpool companies used to talk to each other. Now, I know it's like, well, it's because like Southport's in Merseyside, not in Lancashire and all that. There's a lot of that political bollocks going on. But at one time, there was Blackpool and Southport used to talk to each other. And if they were friends, if we had friends, it's like you do favours for people that you know. And we knew the people down,
One notification.
like the guys who had our company, they knew the guys down in, like I said, they knew the guys down in in the Coliseum and whatever, and they were big clubs. It was like the Casino Club in Wigan, and that was a strange one. The Coach House, not the Coach House. There was another nightclub, and it was called Jumping Jacks. But there's a pub your Neil used to mention, and that was the pub that I got thrown out of. But it's also a pub that we protected because there was a raid. I can't really talk about what happened properly. Something to do with money. Someone wanted to shoot the safe, and we went in and we basically the safe had been shot at. So we just grabbed them, did what we had to do, threw them. We can't throw them in one of our vans, but there'd be a police van right around the corner. You throw them in the police van, all that kind of thing. Because we were always on speaking terms with the police, but we weren't allowed to have, because you weren't allowed to have your own prison van. No. So if we were doing our own raids, or if we were ever stuck in a raid and we needed to, we had an old riot van. We'd throw them in the back of there, and then we'd take them to the police station ourselves. But you did all the restraining methods and God knows what. And quite a few times, there would be issues when we had to go, and there was some difficult raids, and it's, again, how many jobs do you know where someone walks in and holds you at gunpoint? Or someone walks in and puts a knife to your throat, your neck. And they happened when I was in my job. And did you have the knife to your neck? Or no, that was my mate. He had the knife near to his neck, and he just thought, right, whatever you're going to do it to me. But that's the kind of job. Like, you saw people stabbed, people shot. All over money. And it's like, I couldn't do it. I didn't want to do that sort of job anymore where my life's on the line just because someone can't get their shit together and they can't wait for their little bag of Coke or Bliss or whatever. And and I just thought these people were just a waste of space. They weren't. Their time was like, if they wanted to fuck up, that was their thing. It was not my thing at all. I had one of the raids, they came in, and they wanted me to open the safe, And we had 2 safes. And we knew they were robbers. So we just, right, okay. But they came and they blew up the safe. They blew the wrong safe up. So we shot them. In the shoulder. I always shot them in the shoulder. Shot them. I basically went to put people unconscious. I was never going to end a life, but my bosses used to say to me, look, you know, your life, you're trying to set was, but it's like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't kill them. I knew people that could. I knew dangerous people. And I mean dangerous people that could end lives. They didn't give a shit. When they were on a job, it was like something in their brain just turned on. These are people who had some of them had like wives and kids at home. And their job was totally different. You knew some of these guys, and they were just like, there was something in their head that And these guys were totally clean. They had no drugs. They didn't take any drugs. They trained pretty hard, and those that were on the drugs couldn't do the job properly because they were fighting for their addiction. And the ones that had, they were just cold. Yeah. They were just, it was like there was a switch in their brain that just made them this cold, evil person that they were. Like evil's, you're not brought up on evil. It's that crowd you mix with. It's that, it's, the job was making a lot of people evil. I mean, there were evil people in there because there was, the guy who ran it, he was a gangster. Anthony Ford's. Yeah. He'd been in prison multiple times. He ran the prisons he went in. He ran those prisons. Yeah. He was noted. They never, my brother said they tried putting him in Strange Ways. Oh my gosh. And everybody in Strange Ways, he pushed them to the brink. Apparently. He didn't last a moment in Strange Ways, but he was absolutely tortured in Strange Ways, I believe. Because he was in when my brother was in for a spell. But it's just those people. They're just evil people. There's just... And it's like, what kind of job do you want this to be? And it's like... I mean, there was some perks to the job, don't get me wrong. Like... I got a flat for free, rent free. Well, that's not strictly true. I was paying a bit of rent towards the flat, but it was mainly just like beer money and cig money, and I was getting beer money and cig money. A bit of money on top, and I always felt safe in that flat. It's like, because those people, those evil, sick people, were looking after me in my flat. It's a difficult thing to think. Like, you've got these evil, sick people looking after you while you're in your flat. But my flat became, before I left, and it's glad I left when I did, because I left the job first, and then I left the flat a month after, because my flat was becoming a place where they wanted to keep certain stuff, you know. You know, wraps of cocaine and shit like that. And I couldn't live like that. Do you know what I mean? I knew that those dangerous people weren't going to keep me safe for long. But it's weird because when I was there for that time, those people were keeping me safe. And when I left the job and the flat, and I hadn't been in Manchester for 2 years, and I came back with a group of mates, and I went in one of the clubs, and one of the guys on the door said, "You know who's just walked in?" And they go, "No, Ruru Johnson, he's walked in." He was one of the guys, and I think he respected me, and he was evil. He was evil. He was like, but it was like, he was like saying to his mates, "Hey, you know, look who's walked in." And I wouldn't touch a finger. I wouldn't lay a finger on people. You know, I wouldn't. That's not how I did it. But they didn't. Nobody. It was like everybody was really nice to me in the club. You know, I could go anywhere. My friends in the club felt safe. Isn't it weird? We all felt safe in that club. No one dare spike our drinks or out like that. You know, it was like weird. You know, even the DJ in the club, you know, played the records we wanted. It was weird. You know, we had a real good time, but it's, you know, you know, I've just got one story before I finished the security company. We used to go to the match on the weekends. We used to have to go and sit outside the ground in case there was any bother. And it was always, as you can guess, Manchester United's ground. But we weren't at Manchester United. It was Manchester City's ground. And we was at Manchester City's ground. And this guy, he wasn't a seeker out. They wouldn't let him take the knife in to the ground. And so it was arranged that we would take the knife, and then after the game, we'd give it back to him. And he was like, you know, the Sikhs have the envelope, don't they? Or some of these religious movements have the knife in the envelope, and the police look after it. Well, what we did was we said, right, okay, you put it in a package. We'll treat it as a package. And once the game's over, you come to us. I said, just remember the police are that way, we're this way. And we're driving around, and we're just like, shit's going to kick off. He came back to us, and he never used the knife. It was weird. It was a weird situation. But we were paid big money from him as well. It was like, he came back a day later with this sack of money. He was like, no, this is for you. I couldn't take it. It was just, I didn't know what kind of money it was. My mate took it, but I couldn't. I couldn't take that much. I took a cut from it, but it was like, I couldn't take that much. There was over like $1,000 in there. There was like, I think it was like 18 grand in a sack. No, I think it was like 44 grand in a sack. But this was like 2006, 2007. 2002, 2003. You know. And also around that time, people were bombing trains around those times. Yeah. And luckily I got out when it did things that really got, and there was like, because the raids really got bad. And if you wanted to know the reason why I left, we did the Tales from the Vault, so that the raid, yeah. The raid of all raids. And stupid me, I went back in. So I couldn't live that life anymore, and I realised, I mean, there's quite a few things to take from it. Going in nightclubs, disarming people with guns and getting shot or being shot at, and it's just like, whoa, this is not, like I said, this isn't a job to live anymore. So I went to a friend's place around the corner, and I was working at the computer shop, and I was doing that, and I also did just little jobs. I helped a friend at a pizza store. Really, yeah, just like, pizza store, doing deliveries. I did door-to-door stuff, little bits and pieces like that. I did a few bar shifts, just to keep my hand in. And you burnt a pie, didn't you? I did in one bar. Yeah. And I even worked in... I even worked in a motorway services for a little while. That was a good job. I enjoyed my time there, and I think I helped a friend set up an arcade and stuff like that. So I did little bits here and there. But then there was a time when...
One notification. One notification.
I thought, sod it, I'm not going to work anymore. I'm just going to party for 3 years straight. Which, when you do it, it's like, because I could drive and everybody, like, when you've got a car, that is like, you are the one with the car, and everybody's like, hey man, you can drive a car. Can you drive our car? And it's like, freaking hell, you're driving stolen cars then, but that's another... that's another story. We'll do that for another day, but but you're driving cars for people because you can drive and everybody else can't drive. So they're jumping in the car with all the booze, and you're telling them, look, you can't take all this booze because the police and everything. Why don't we just take half of it? We'll just take 3 crates. And you are not drinking in this car. You're not drinking while we're driving along. Yeah, because if you get pulled, you if you get pulled while driving, it's just, don't do it. So we're driving to wherever, and they'd be drinking at someone's flat, and it's like, that's how it starts, and it's like, hey, drivers to whatever, and it was like, I drove here to Southport, And I was like, do you know what, guys? I'm going to stick around in Southport. And I'll come up and see you guys because, you know, that's how it'll work. And one of the guys said, you know, I want to stay with you in Southport. And I was like, well, do you know, I've not got a job or anything. I'm not going to live. I'm just going to live in you know, I'm just going to live in my car for a while. Which wasn't true because I'd drive round to my other friend's house. And my other friend wanted to stay with me, and he did. But realised that we would fall out because I was smoking and... I was a very heavy smoker in those days. And we'd go out because in those days you could still smoke in the pub. So on the Friday night, we'd all go to the pub. I mean, even when I worked for the security company, but Friday night, we'd go to the pub. Not realising that everybody would be looking for the, you know, buying drugs, getting ready for the Saturday. You test the drugs, you know, buy all the drugs, get ready for Saturday. So on Friday, you just get pissed. You wouldn't smoke anything. A little bit of weed to keep everything stable, but you know, it was more cigarettes than anything else, cigars. Mostly a little bit of, you know, tobacco, which people did. And so then we decided, okay, well, on the Friday, there's hardly many people out on the Friday. So I'd drink till about 2, 3 in the morning. Then if you were right on the Saturday, you go out, eat breakfast, buy records, come home, and sleep till 4 p.m. 4 p.m. get up, drink like mad. Yeah.
One notification.
Find your friends. Go around to your friends. They'd be all testing all the drugs that you bought. And they'd be like, pick a mix, you know. They'd all be on amphetamines. The only thing I think they did was speed. But it was like everything else, all weed mainly. But they were all like doing speed, ecstasy. Some were doing ketamine. Some were doing LSD, and you know, some were doing shrooms. And it was like a real cocktail of drugs. And then we'd go out, but I would drive. And I'd stay on weed because I drove them around, mostly. And I wouldn't drink till I thought, right, okay, I can park my car here and then pick it up tomorrow. I used to put my car about 2 or 3 days late. It was normally like, oh, crumbs, you know. And then we decided that we'd go on a road trip. And it was really weird because it's like there was fights, there was arguments, there was just people just not getting on well, and there was quite a few people on the road trip. And we hired a van. The van got smashed up along the way. My car got stolen. It was weird. And I don't remember half of it. because it's just, maybe that's another story, but it was, and the other guy, he fucked off somewhere. We never found him. I think it was somewhere in the fucking part of the hill on Ashes Beacon. But I remember him and this girl, and they were like arguing like cat and dog. And then they were just like fucking like rabbits. You know? And then these other people, they just came into it. And it's like, hey, Andrew. Hey, man, let's go. Hey, man, you go on this trip? I was like, yeah. Where's your car? Oh, I've got no car. We'll jump in our car. Well, it was the fucking van, wasn't it? And I was driving it, and they were all fucking... I had to drive because I was kind of not as fucked up as they were. You know, even though I had done shit. You know, like... And it was like... I had to drive them all the way around, basically. And it's like, you know, hey, we're going to Edinburgh. And it's like, oh, no, it's not the Scottish guys going to Edinburgh. End up in Glasgow. And that was amazing. Everyone went nuts. And then I woke up in a cell. and how it happened was apparently I was so drunk and high on steroids, and someone had basically laced something in the weed that I'd smoked before. I got pissed that someone had said something, and apparently I punched them, knocked them out without realising. You know, so they were lying in hospital, and I was in a cell, and I had to sort of like, I had to get out of. I was like, oh shit, you know. So the guy threatened me with court for about 3 years, and then I just said, look, I said, I will pay whatever damage that's been done. And he said, well, you can buy me 3 pints. I says, yeah, fine. I'll buy 3 pints. He comes to Southport, doesn't he? And he's like, oh, do you remember that wee road trip? I says, yeah. Remember that wee cell? He went, I saw him in Manchester not so long back, and he's had a few scrapes and this, that, the other, and you know, but that was his route in life. And I then went and lived with these other mates in a house which just went shitter and shitter. We were partying more or less every night. And the smoking ban came in, so we couldn't go to the pub and smoke no more. And so we just had house parties, and they started off great, but then it's like people just want to do drugs all the time. And people aren't your friend no more because you don't want to go and get... And then all the alcoholics move in. Yay, so you're alcoholics and druggies. And there was a girl who just, like, they got friends with. I never, like... And I ended up having to look after this girl because she was fucking out of her mind on heroin. And she got lost twice. And she died in the bath, didn't she? Yeah, well, I went out looking for jobs because I thought, right, no, this life needs to change. They were all getting drunk and high and whatnot, you know. And I comes back and the bathroom's like flooding. And I'm like, shit, you know. And I'm climbing up the stairs and climbing over people and people just being sick, and I'm getting to the bathroom and one of the lads was like, hey, you're not going to get in there, whatever. She's like fucking drunk and all the rest of it. And I got in the bath, the bathroom. I got to her and she died in the bath. She'd OD'd in the bath. So we had to get her body out the bath and call the police and everything. And as I'm doing that, I'm getting beers in for everyone, and because that's what I did. Went out, got crates of beer, brought them back. And there was this dead girl in the kitchen. Are you all right, Andy? Yeah, I find it very difficult talking about what happened, but I can sort of come to terms with some of it. And then everybody was still partying. I had to go to bed because I was due at the job centre the next day. And I was going to the job centre looking for jobs. And I was just so depressed. I didn't want to go back to the house. So I basically I went to a pub. I had a couple of pints. And I went back home and went to bed. And everyone's like, hey, Andrew, you're partying. I was like, nope, am I hell? I was climbing over people all the time. It was just, it was just like loud music and this girl, she was in the kitchen. And she was...
One notification. 7:29 p.m.
She was a goner. She wasn't going to stick around anymore. No. So anyway, that was... And obviously when her family found out about her, they came yelling and blaming me, and they just threw her into the car and took her away. And I was so depressed. I didn't want to see anybody. And I went to the job centre. I still wasn't finding anything. And I was also looking for a place to live. To get out this awful mess. I just had this girl's family screaming at me because they were blaming me for her death. And yet I sort of just did what I could. I did warn her. Heroin is bad. If you take that shit, you'll fucking, And I knew that heroin was like the devil. It's just like awful. And she'd do anything to get heroin. And it's like, she would just wreck the house, apparently, just to get heroin. But she never knew, she never knew that when she was when she was going missing, I was going looking for her. And I went all the way to St. Helens because I knew she'd be at a dealer's. I knew stuff would be happening. And I didn't know if I knew that rat poison was involved, if I knew that was going into her, I would have stopped her there and then, but I couldn't because I had myself to focus on. I couldn't be running around after some girl that couldn't be asked to fix a habit. No way. I mean, if it was my brother, that'd have been another story. But it wasn't. And, and you can deal with the sweating and the shaking and the vomiting and and it's people say that's not good to allow them to sweat and vomit and but it's also not good to fucking let them ruin the lifestyle. So anyway, I just felt like the family didn't give two shits. Because it's like, well, how much money is she worth kind of thing. She's got loads of money, fuck that kind of thing. And so she's, and so she was gone, and what the fuck could I do? And I was stuck in this sort of limbo, just looking for her, And then Adam, I met up with Adam. I knew Adam for a long time. But I was like, look, I want to turn my life around kind of thing. I want a real, well, not turn my life around, but I just want a job and and he says, look, crash at mine. That was simple, crash at mine. He had someone moving out of his house at the time, and I just fitted in perfectly. And I got a job with Geo Warehouse, which are now Electron Warehouse. And the rest is history, however it isn't, because I then went to work for a phone company for a while. That ended. Worked at builders' offices, then went back to Electron. And you left Adam, didn't you? I left Adam because there was issues with him bringing a woman in. He wanted space. I wasn't this first priority anymore. So yeah, I obviously needed somewhere to be, and that somewhere to be was not his place. So he, me and him just sort of like, again, there was weed involved. There was just a termination, but turbulence. But we got there. And we're now friends again. Yeah.
2 notifications.
But it's a needs must, isn't it? Then when I left, It was really big then. Yeah. Really big. Really big. And people started to find out that, yeah, this is like really big what I'm trying to. But anyway, let's cut to the when we met, because we met on Side Road. Yeah. And what was your thoughts of me back then to now? I don't know really, because we'd only met for a little bit. My thoughts about you was that you were this millionaire with an amazing motorbike, and yeah, because I got the motorbike for my birthday, and I had to sell it. I met you for a very small spell, but then it was like you didn't want me, and you were sacking me, and it was like, oh well, what's he been fed kind of thing. So when I brought you back to the company years later, what did you think then? I thought, hey, this guy's really giving me a chance. He really likes me. But he wanted me because I was young. Yes, and not someone who was, someone who was new and. Obviously, respected of that really. So, what did you think of Neil when you first met him? Because we came here and Neil, and I thought Neil at the time was, before lockdown, I thought he was a very distant type of guy. Yeah, he didn't really want to know who I was. He kind of, he kind of, well, we never came, when we came here, we never came into the other part of the house where Neil was originally. No, that was just out of bounds for us. Yeah, which in a way it was a good thing, because we never bothered going in the living room. We never bothered going upstairs. We didn't need to. No, we didn't need to. So the time when we stayed here, it was a brand new chapter for us, really. I did a video about Neil. A lot of people have asked about Neil on the channel, those that know from the Media Mogul channel, and I thought, well, I had to do the tale. Neil's got his own. It's strange, because I saw his CV the other day, and I thought his CV looked so modern. Yeah, it was like, it was a story that we already knew, but it's like a lot of the jigsaw fitted into place after the funeral, really. A lot of it. And it's like, this guy, Neil Thompson, was a friend. Yeah, he was like, all the stuff we knew about Neil. You know, it's like if he had a Facebook profile, it would be Neil Thompson, supports Wigan, yeah, likes bowls. It was very sort of what we knew. And it's like, and it's funny really, because the stuff that's not worth knowing about a person, it's best. But I did know things. And you know,
Free notifications. Free notifications.
It's like, I said to Mummy, you know, finding that CV has put my heart at rest. Don't know why. I don't know. It's you know, you said though that Neil, towards the end of his life, was turning into Nell, and that was. Did you find that was strange or?
4 notifications. 4 notifications.
I got closer to Neil in the later years of his life, because when we moved here, when the office was here, Neil was just giving us the office, you know. And the Outside Road stories on the other channel, but I've retold it on the Tales from the Vault series, because I've had to really tell the story from Outside Road here, because it's a very moving story. And, you know, Jack and Neil and Dad, how they're all very different people, and how they've worked with us. But it's like, because I know everybody asks the question, they pop the question, you know, like, did Neil ever own the channel? Did they ever know about the channel? Well, Neil knew about your other channel, didn't he? He knew about Neil knew I had an online presence, and he didn't really want to be online or anything like that. But towards the end, he knew every time the camera was on or whatever, he'd be there. And you know, the channel reflects that, really. Yeah.
4 notifications. 7:46 p.m.
In many ways, but I would say that Neil brought me, you, and Rosemary closer through lockdown. Yeah. Because Neil taught us how to value each other in a way, because I felt through COVID, life wasn't any different for us. No. It was like we were living in our own universe, you know, offline. Yeah. I know online people saw, and it's, but no one saw, you know, like you and Rosemary were still making Christmas dinner. You made Christmas dinner here. You had that, didn't you? No, you did. I didn't. You had it because, but anyway, and it's like you and Rosemary still had your arguments and things, but when you were here, you two just mellowed. Not for me, because I realised, all right, poo sort of went down after, after you went back to your flat. That was like Rosemary, she screwed things up. I'll never know to this very day, she upset Neil. Yeah. And she really did, because I know when something had bothered him. It was to do with you not getting paid the money. Well, I wasn't bothered. It was my fault because I gave her some holiday money. But anyway, it's strange because, like you've said with the Arnside Road story, you did what you had to do to kind of keep going. Yeah. You've done what you've done to keep sort of the company's alive in your way, kind of thing. But speaking of which, I mean, we've had a different chapter. I mean, here, when you look at it, I don't want to spoil a story that I'm doing, but between here and Arnside Road, this is a very different chapter. And next door. And there's a new chapter about to begin. And who knows, I'll write a bloody book. Yeah, about the days, as people do ask all these stupid things, like on my other channel, like, how did you start this company? Yeah, and where were you when you started that? And where was I? Yeah, where was I when I started this company? And how did you meet this person? Well, we met at Arnside Road, at the Arnside Road days, and yeah. And that was such a small house. Yeah. And it was, the awful bit about it was, after we left, we did think, should we recruit Andy? It was just a Colin laugh, wasn't it? Yeah. But didn't you come to that meeting with John and Slim and everybody, and John and Slim just up and left? Yeah. They were like, sod it, we're up and leaving. Yeah, because it was like, oh, we don't need security, and yeah. I mean, Jack said we never needed to have security, but I thought, well, no, I'm going to keep John on and bring Slim back. Yeah, because Slim wasn't doing anything. Didn't you have that other guy, that George? Yeah, he didn't do much. But you did security. Do you remember when you did security for a while? Yeah, I did security. I think I came back to do security because I wasn't needed to sit in the office. And Colin was never there, so I never saw him. Except for when he was there, because I had to come and say to you, oh, there's been this problem, that problem. Yeah. We still wasn't. It was just boring. I was just sitting in the kitchen and, yeah, waiting for Jack to put the alarm on and, you know, and it was very different. And then when you came here, it was more upbeat, more alive. Yeah. And again, you know, the company is really, when you look at it, it's like everything that we dreamt of has happened. Not everything we've dreamt of has happened, but the things we have dreamt of, these sort of the things that we need, we've taken from them dreams and we've really brought them to life. Yeah. And when the book comes out, the Imaginary Friends Archive, when that book comes out, it'll have the story of Arnside Road. Yeah. So yeah, it's been amazing times and more amazing times ahead. Well, it's strange because I was sacked earlier this year. And that's the question. I think if Neil was still living, would I have stayed sacked? Yes. I didn't think about bringing you back to the company. And then Adam was like, we need to bring him back. You know, full time. Yeah. And that was for me.
5 notifications.
I felt
5 notifications. WhatsApp. Now. Tilda Elizabeth. Worship group. Camera. OS for Sunday. Snapchat. +3 from Snapchat. 7:55 p.m.
I felt personally that I couldn't keep you sacked because we were both in bad places after Neil died. Yeah. Which we had to be in order to realise that I think as well, like when Neil died, I went, well, before then, when I got sacked, I went to work for Electron Warehouse back there because I'd been doing that before. I was working 2 jobs, just so I could get some money for a flat. Because I'd moved in and things were difficult. And I'd worked for Electron for about 3 years. No, hold on. Yeah, because I'd started in... No, it was about... It was from 2016 to 2017. Yeah. Or was it 2015? I know I started on the vans helping one of my mates. It was Clive, wasn't it? No, it was Rick. But Clive, I used to help him out as well. It was like, I'll do shifts for you, then I'll do shifts for you. And then I started and I was like, yeah, man, and the money on the vans. And I thought, driving a van, it's like, wow, I've got a driving job. But it's just like, but then Neil said to you, he can't work 2 jobs. He either works for you or he either works for them. Yep. So you sat me down and 2016 and said, I can't do it anymore. But I finished in 2017. And you worked here for... But it's like, we had my mob for like the past 4 years of being here. And caused a bit of a ruckus. Yeah. But the last few years we've been radiant advertisement, and it's been an absolute breeze. Well, we were Ball and Mackenhill Productions before that. I remember that because it was Ball and Mackenhill and Johnson.
6 notifications. WhatsApp 6 notifications.
It was going to be Ball and Winter Productions at one spell. But radiant advertisement just fit the bill. Yeah, it does. And it's strange because there's a lot of people who know me as doing adverts and doing, and then there's other people who know me for the building, and then there's other people that know me for other bits and pieces. And you really, you've really enjoyed like working together. We were like, let's just build on whatever we're going to do, and Steve's going to carry on with his YouTube channel, and yes, I am. And yeah, so if you've made it this far, right, I'm just going to say this is part of the Tales from the Vaults, and this has been a bit of a windy road. Yeah, we started off talking about me, and we've ended up with Steve, and yeah. Do you remember, though, I've got one funny story, which we didn't mention. Do you remember that night I was drunk? We can't talk too much about it. Oh, yeah. And I kicked you. You hurt me, man. But you helped me down the stairs. You got me down the stairs, got me to bed, right? And then, so the last time I was drunk, it was this year. And Andy thought I was going to be sick. So he's going, shh, shh, shh. I'm going, Andy. And he's like, yeah, because I thought, I knew you, I got to know you, and I was like, I can't bollock him. Did you want to bollock me? No, not this time round. Because even though I was pissed myself, I knew that you were different to my mates. You were different to, it was different to like Reese or anybody. And I just thought, it's like Rosemary. You're comparing me to a freaking female, you... Thanks. But I just thought you were more sort of genteel, from the inside out. Thanks, Andy. What did you think? I was like your friends or something last time? Well, yeah, I thought, one of my mates wouldn't have, if I was staying at theirs, I wouldn't be woken up. Like, I've had to look after them, but never in that way. Because you shouted at me, Andy, where's my water? And yeah, and I thought, shit. And So I learned very quickly after that night, you know, you've not forgotten it though. I've not forgotten it though. But the last time, like, shh, come on, it's all right. I was like, I've remembered it now. Yeah, I was like, come on. And then I went to the toilet, and you pushed me forward. I thought, shit, Andy, I'm gonna fall. But you had hold of me. You're going, shh, it's all right. I was like, I'm not gonna be sick. It's like, it's all right. And you dragged me back, but you held on to me. Yeah. But you pushed me forward. It's like, shit, Andy. Well, it's what you do. If someone's going to be sick, you push them forward. I thought you were going to go, thanks. Yeah. I thought, shit, he's going to be ill.
7 notifications. WhatsApp. Group. Now. Carol. Worship group.
So, I pushed him forward. Yeah. To the toilet. Thinking. And when I had a hangover, you were really sportive. Because you came back that night to come and stay. And you were all right. And I was dead. Well, I just got over it. And Neil, I didn't have a lot of tea that night. And me and Neil, we just watched Downton. And Neil, that was another change in Neil. He was really comforting me. He didn't give me a cuddler out, but, you know. But he knew and that's the thing, yeah. But when I had the hangover that time, on the New Year's Day, you came over on that evening, and the first thing you said to me was, "Are you all right now, mate?"
8 notifications. WhatsApp. 8 notifications. WhatsApp.
And I said, well, I'll never ever drink that much again. Yeah. And you said something to me like, well, Maddie will patch things up or something. Yeah. And that's another thing that I'm grieving over as well, is I won't see Maddie again. I shouldn't have seen her that day. It was like, I shouldn't have, there's always shoulda, woulda, couldas, but didn't you tell to that she'd be all right? And I couldn't look at her because I thought, if she sees me in the eye, she's going to not want to go. So that made my grieving process a little bit worse, but yeah. Anyway, I kind of want to say that we have been, we've had the lockdown days. That's got us a bit closer. Yeah. And especially with Rosemary as well. And then Rosemary, I was a bit funny with her. Because I thought she sounded a bit like Nell. And I just turned. And I had to realise, shit, please don't go. I told her to go and everything. I was really bitter and my voice was bitter. And it was weird. I couldn't explain that. Yeah, she told me about that. She said, Steve's gone strange. I said, well, just don't go because he'll come round. Yeah, because she was upset. she was upset that I did that, really.
8 notifications. 8:07 p.m.
Anyway, that's the end of the interview. If you've enjoyed it, you know what to do.
8 notifications. WhatsApp. Root. 8. 7. PQRS. 8. TUV. Mic trigger. Mic lock. Finish recording. But finish recording.